Coffee grows cold on the kitchen table. Morning news plays to an empty room. Detective's badge feels heavier today. Another case, another life consumed.
Welcome back to MJ on Crime. I'm your host, MJ, retired Fed, born and raised New York, so you know I don't sugarcoat. And today, listen, we're diving deep into a wild shift in crime solving, the rise of amateur sleuths and online forums changing the game. No exaggeration. The Golden State Killer, the case that haunted California for decades, that's where we're starting. You had citizen genealogists like C.C. Moore and online web sleuths piecing together a jigsaw that stumped police for 40-something years. They took open-source DNA databases, started building family trees, following little leads, and before you knew it, bang, Joseph D'Angelo, a former cop, in cuffs. That was in 2018. What made that work? It's that blend of relentless, tech-savvy folks outside the traditional justice system, just regular people with a laptop using public tools. They had the freedom to look at things differently. They weren't tied up in red tape or stuck on old ways of conducting investigations. And law enforcement, for all their resources, sometimes just don't see what a fresh set of eyes can. Let me tell you, when the caseload is heavy, your eyes are too. I gotta say, early on, law enforcement wasn't wild about letting outsiders in. Detectives with a cold case folder, tip lines open, and cases going nowhere. A retired detective recently told me, "I'll never forget the first time I was involved with a tip that came from the public. A tip line. I almost trashed it. Guy claimed he had a lead based on something he saw on TV, of all places. But he suggested a detail we missed, and that broke the case open." That's when you have the epiphany. You don't win alone. It's a team game, even if your team has never worn a badge. Now let's switch gears a bit. Talk about the digital crowd in action. Reddit, the site where everyone's got an opinion, sometimes a bit too loud for my taste, but hey, they get results. The disappearance of Elisa Lam at that LA hotel, the infamous Cecil Hotel. Remember this case? Lam goes missing, cops get stuck, no big breaks. But Reddit detectives, they latched onto every second of that elevator footage, dissected frame by frame, and started pulling up timelines, visible patterns, even possible sightings. Suddenly, leads started popping up that the cops never saw. Case solved. Check out the Netflix series on this case, The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel. It's worth watching and really highlights what we are discussing in this episode. Here's the thing, though. Sometimes the energy turns productive, sometimes it just spins out of control. You've got folks finding new clues, but you also get conspiracy theories running wild. People convinced there's a ghost behind every shadow. Law enforcement basically has to pick through that haystack. Which tips do you chase, and what's just noise? I mean, honestly, half the job now is becoming filtering social media. When you're working a case like this, it's a delicate dance. If you ignore the crowdsourced leads, you might miss gold. Run after every rabbit hole, and you go nuts. I've seen both sides, and believe me, sometimes your best lead comes from some username you can't pronounce, typing from halfway across the country. But all right, let's pump the brakes and talk about when things go wrong. Boston Marathon bombing. Everyone remembers that chaos. Social media exploded, Reddit included. They thought they had the bombers pinned down, and they were dead wrong. They named Sunil Tripathi. The poor kid had nothing to do with it. His family, already going through hell, suddenly gets the whole internet pointing fingers. That's the danger. There's power in the crowd, but also real risk. That's the line amateurs cross sometimes, posting before verifying, getting wrapped up in a theory and running with it. I've seen it up close. The fallout is ugly. That's why now more platforms are tightening rules, mods, keeping a tighter leash. And even law enforcement is stepping up to cut off wild goose chases early. It's all about balance, accuracy, empathy, restraint, and maybe a reality check now and then. We've learned, often the hard way, that behind every headline is a real family, real pain. You can't ever forget that. So what do? How do you keep the power of the crowd but cut down on the mistakes? It starts with ground rules: verify before posting, back up every claim, and double and triple check what lands in a public forum. If you fancy yourself an online sleuth, you got to treat every piece of info like it's going to be on a courtroom screen. Online communities need to police themselves, encourage members to pause, check sources, and work as a team instead of chasing every headline. There's progress. Platforms like Web Sleuths and some Reddit mods are creating clear guidelines, making sure people know what's cool and what's not. And law enforcement, they're starting to open up communication too, letting people know how to share what they find the right way. It's about mutual trust. Cops listen to tips. Sleuths respect the process. Maybe set up workshops, maybe do awareness campaigns so everyone gets why ethics and boundaries matter. Because the minute you cross that line, it's not helping anymore. It's hurting. This brings us to a bigger question. How do we actually bridge the gap between the amateurs and the badge holders? Some places now are formalizing partnerships, real official team-ups between cops and online communities. It's smart. That way, both sides know the expectations, the limitations, who's responsible for what. But you need strict protocols too. Tips have to be sourced from more than one place. Evidence has to be detailed and dated and logged. No more, I heard from a friend's cousin. And before anything goes public, it's got to be checked, rechecked, and squared away with privacy. Training's another big one. Online sleuths doing these webinars or crash courses, learning the basics of digital privacy, ethical standards, and how to document what they find without risking someone's livelihood or dignity. Let's be honest, nobody wants a witch hunt. The more legit these community efforts get, the more law enforcement is willing to take them seriously. All right, final stretch. Let's talk about what's next, because this isn't going away. Some departments are now experimenting with joint training workshops, bringing in amateur sleuths, showing how cops operate, but also learning how these civilians connect dots in new ways. There's talk of centralized digital platforms, a place where sleuths can submit verified tips, track the investigation, and get feedback. No more send it into the void and hope someone's listening. Real transparency. I'll tell you, this kind of protocol could mean promising stuff doesn't get lost, and privacy rules stay front and center. Everybody knows where the lines are, and nobody's left out of the loop. You get the best of both worlds, old school experience and new school energy. I know some people will always be skeptical. Leave it to the pros, they'll say. But from where I'm standing, you want justice, you take all the help you can get. The crowd's here to stay. Might as well harness it right. That's it for today. And please, if you are following this podcast on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and comment. It really helps the channel and allows me to bring you more of this true crime content. Okay, folks, we'll keep watching the case files and talking about what matters because every crime has a story. My mission, tell it.
Coffee grows cold on the kitchen table. Morning news plays to an empty room. Detective's badge feels heavier today. Another case, another life consumed. Questions pile up like autumn leaves. No wind to blow them all away. Ooh, hold the weight of truth and lies drink deeper than roots. Family photos not in man's straight. Smiling faces, high world legs beneath. volumes behind closed doors and drawn curtains. Every neighbor becomes suspect when trust breaks like glass on pavement. Someone's world just changed forever, forever change.